And so just connecting with your mat so that your spine feels supported. Settling into the fluidity of your breath. I'm just really feeling into how our body lands, how our body processes each breath cycle. We'll give ourselves let's say about 90 more seconds just to land here this morning, settle into our practice. And then let's exhale and let both bring, let's reset. Let's inhale and bring both knees into a bent position if they're not already there. And then we'll exhale and let both knees fall over to the left. And then we'll inhale to neutral and exhale to the right. And inhale to neutral. Exhale to the left. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the right. Feel that mid-body rotation. And then we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Pull both thighs in towards the rib cage. Get that nice little squeeze there. Feel your hips compress. Think about how you can relax more deeply into this compression. And then let's let our feet come back to the mat, and we'll just let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And we'll press our way up to find a seat. And so making our way into our seat, something that feels really, really foundational and supportive. And then let's allow Let's allow our eyes to close. Some of you have done this with me before, some of you haven't, but we're going to work the musculature that actually controls the eyes here. So with the eyes closed, we are going to make our eye direction or our vision direction come up towards the center of the forehead. So we won't see any change, but the actual direction of our eyeball will change up to the center of the forehead. You can kind of think of it as rolling your eyes back if that's a thing that you do. And we want to hold that lift there. And then relax the eyes back to neutral. And then we'll pull that eye direction down like you're trying to look at your chin. And then we'll relax back to neutral. Our eyes are staying closed here. And then we are going to take the eyes over towards the left, like you're trying to look at your left ear. And relax back to neutral. And then we'll do the same thing over to the right, like we're trying to look at our right ear. And we'll relax back to neutral. Now let's just let our eyes open so we can receive some light and kind of feel some sensation. We'll inhale, lift our chin so the chin points towards the ceiling. See if you can get that base of the throat expansion. Push the bottom jaw straight up. Feel that anterior throat space. Relax back to neutral. And then let's exhale, chin down to the sternum. As the chin tucks here, try to pull your bottom jaw back towards the base of your throat. And see if you can get that posterior chain activation in the cervical spine. And then we'll relax back to neutral. Let our eyes close once again. We are going to draw the eyes down towards the chin, again, staying closed, but pointing the hypothetical field of vision down. And we'll relax. And then we're going to draw that hypothetical field of vision up towards the center of the forehead. And we'll relax. We're going to take that field of vision over towards the right ear. And we'll relax. And over towards the left ear. Really trying to stretch that out. And we'll relax. Let the field of vision come back to neutral. Let your eyes open there and receive some light, and just notice how different that kind of region of vision feels. And then let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. Finding our way into that tabletop space where we can get our spine nice and neutral. Exhale, push the middle of the back round into that flexion shape. Press down into the hands. And then inhale, drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin, reverse that shape. We'll come back to a neutral spine, curl our toes and lift back into one down dog. This will be our most active, most vertical shape we'll get into today. So feel free to explore this a little bit. I'll give you about 10 more seconds just to explore what feels good in down dog this morning. And then we'll come back down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink into a nice, settled child's pose. And my recommendation here would be to let the eyes close so that you can let that eye musculature, that field of vision musculature, just relax a little bit more. And we'll settle into some ease of breath. And we'll give ourselves just about 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop, extend our legs straight out in front of us so we make our way into a staff shape. And then let's just follow that forward into a fold that feels appropriate. Remember, we have not warmed up the posterior chain much, little down dog, but be generous in your knee bend, especially if that makes your shape feel better. When it feels appropriate, let's walk ourselves back up into staff. We'll bend the right knee, let that fall out wide. And as that lateral edge lands, let's slide our way back forward into a asymmetrical fold. Asymmetrical leg alignment, symmetrical hip alignment, though, right? So just because we have that external rotation on the right side doesn't mean we're shifting or changing the way our torso is resting on our hips. Really think about a flat, neutral body as you elongate out from the belt line to that fold apex. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And as you're right, we'll walk ourselves back up into seat, extend the right leg to mirror the left and just follow that forward. Just a brief little symmetrical fold here, just to kind of check in. Note the freedom on the left leg in comparison. And then we'll walk ourselves back up to staff. Left knee bends, left leg falls out wide. As you land in that external rotation, we'll just follow that through into this asymmetrical leg setup, symmetrical or balanced fold setup. Last 20 seconds here on the second side. And when you're right, we'll come back up to vertical. Extend that left leg so that it mirrors the right and take your way into fold. Brief little touchdown there. Think about that elongation. We'll walk ourselves back up to vertical. Okay. So our next setup is going to require you to make some decisions. If you're using a prop other than a block as your second prop, so if you're using a book or a block-like object that doesn't have the same density and durability as a block, we're going to use that as our headrest. If you're using a block, you're going to use that as your spine rest. So making the decision that is appropriate, and this can probably start out on your low height. If we are using the block, we're going to take our blanket and kind of fold that block-esque and place that above the block so that we have this. If we're using a book, we're here, and then we'll have our blanket at a more equivalent height. So we want a roughly equivalent 2-part height here. I'm going to demo with block and with blanket folded in a block-like shape. And we are headed so that the bottom edge of our first prop, that's not true. We're headed, if we're using the block, bottom edge at the thoracic spine and finding that headrest. If we are using the reverse setup where we have a more firm headrest, then we'll have a longer spine support, and that will be tailbone through, and then you can adjust by pulling that firmer prop down so that it's under your head. Either one of those shapes is going to give us kind of the thoracic lift that we're looking for. And if you only have one, right, totally good. Just do the elongated blanket roll and don't scrunch that down so that you have a nice support there as well. And then arms here can be cactus if that is accessible. Keep in mind that we have an elevated torso, so that can be pretty intense on the anterior shoulder capsule. It can be down by your sides. They can rest on your sternum. Legs can be extended, knees bent, bottoms of the feet together, or any other shape that feels appropriate for you. And then really think about how the breath is traveling up into the sternum, how you're filling that lung space with your inhale, lung cavity with your inhale. And let the props and do their work around your cycles of breath. And so there's this young girl who has this desire to start making music. And she starts making music, and people start connecting with the music she makes. And she starts getting kind of popular in her local settings. And as she grows up and she writes from more life experience, and more life experience gets interwoven into her songs become more popular. And as her songs become more popular, her audience starts to expand beyond kind of these local live performances to a more broad national awareness. She gets signed with a record label, and she produces multiple albums, all of which kind of have a gaining popularity to them. And as her popularity, as her fandom expands, her albums, her music, her art really becomes the entirety of the value of these record labels, or of this record label. And because record labels are very infrequently run in fiscally responsible ways, her record label eventually, even with her stunning and smashing success, runs out of money. And is going to get sold. And as her record label, which is the value of her work, is to be sold, an interesting thing happens. Hedge funds start to look at purchasing this record label so that they can own the value of her art for music. And this one particular hedge fund ends up buying her record label and thus owning the rights to the entirety of her artwork thus far. We're going to be here for about 50 more seconds. And we'll eventually bring our knees to a bent position, kneecaps point towards the ceiling, roll to one side or the other off of our prop, just delicately coming off of that prop base, and then removing that from our mat so that we can roll right back onto our spine and be at ease and allow for that thoracic space to just come back into this neutral alignment. Give yourself just another moment, breath, or cycle or two to reintegrate. And then we'll balance that out. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees to a bent position if they're not already there. Then allow the bottoms of the feet to come together and the knees to fall out wide. A little supine butterfly check in. Kind of feeling into how we settle here. And then we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Again, we're going to make a decision based upon the props we're utilizing. If we're using a block, we're going to go on the medium, likely, potentially high height, but I do not recommend the high height here. I like the medium height. So medium height, if you're using a combination, we're going to make our prop just a little bit more elevated or dense. So we would put the book underneath the blanket and then blanket or towel, and then just slide that underneath the tailbone so that we get a little bit more elevation. So we're either on an elevated, slightly elevated bridge, or we're in an elevated bridge. We're either on a slightly elevated / moderately elevated block, or we're on a stack of two props to increase the density and give us a little bit of extra lift. Again, arms here can be down by the sides. Cactus should be a little bit more eased as we have the shoulders connected and grounded. And we're just kind of reversing out that upper back bend into extension by working a little flexion drop into the low back bend, right? So we have that working towards the back side of the body as the spine drops off of our prop. And settling right into what we've created here. And so this hedge fund ends up buying this young woman's art, this young woman's music catalog. And they didn't buy it for the reason of helping her to flourish or grow or support her capacity. They bought it because they recognized that by controlling her assets, they would have the ability to control her. And they also saw a huge financial return. And the move is mostly lauded by Wall Street as a financial win for this hedge fund group. And for this young artist, it's pretty devastating. She now has someone who doesn't care about her artwork in control of what she's created. And they start controlling where her artwork shows up, how her artwork is distributed, how she can utilize her own creations. And so now she's stuck. She has this back catalog of art she's created that she's connected to, that has resonated with people all over the world. But that previous craft is now financially benefiting people who are directly using that financial power against her. Last 20 seconds ish here. And when it feels appropriate, we will lift our belt line high enough to slide that prop or those props out from underneath us and lower our tailbone down to the mat so that we can land there. Really feeling how the body anchors down from the tailbone to the base of the skull. And then let's let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Kind of mirroring what we did on the top half of the spine. Eventually, we'll bring the knees back together. Extend the left leg down the mat and pull the right thigh in towards our rib cage, interlacing the fingers on the shin or the hamstring so that you can get some compression, some broadening. Some ease. And then we will release that right leg to mirror the left. Pull the left knee in, clasp the hands, get yourself that compression, that broadness across the sternum, the ease in your breath. And then we'll release that left leg to mirror the right. Sweep the arms up and overhead towards the wall behind you, not towards the ceiling. Let the palms be up and just extend the full length of the body here. You can even point the toes if that feels good. And then relax. Draw both knees in towards the rib cage. Give yourself that nice little full body squeeze here. And then we'll release the feet back down to the mat. Let both knees fall over to the left. Inhale back to neutral. Let both knees fall over towards the right. Inhale back to neutral. And let both knees fall over towards the left and find your static twist here. Really settling in for this rotation. And so this young woman feels really trapped. She's done this thing, she's achieved this dream, and yet the dream, her artwork, is now funding the very people who are controlling her, preventing her from expressing her art in the way she wants to today. And it's terrifying because they control all of this music she's made that is incredibly popular. And it is incredibly profitable, and it is funding this hedge fund. We'll be here for about 35 more seconds. And we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Take the feet out to the width of the mat. Let the knees fall in towards one another. See if you can get the low back to relax, to release, to unwind here. The musculature supporting the spine to deactivate. And then let's bring our knees back out to the width of our ankles. We'll walk our ankles back in line with our hips. And we'll let both knees fall over to the second side, the right side. And we land here in this static twist, looking to support the hips and the spine and their integration. And so part of the struggle in this young woman's position is that anything she does now to increase her own popularity empowers this hedge fund that is wielding undue influence over her life and career. So anytime she gets more popular, they make more money. And they're using that financial resource against her. Seeing if you can tap into some of that deactivated musculature we had when we had our feet wide in this twist so that you are more relaxed, more at ease in the rotation. Last 10 seconds here on this second side. And we'll bring those knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together one more time and let the knees fall out wide. Looking to again to tap into that sense of deactivation that we created when we had the reverse shape, ankles wide, knees in, here in this exaggerated external rotation of the hips. Trying to feel the low back relax into the mat with each breath cycle. And then we'll bring our knees back to neutral. One last time, pull both thighs in towards your torso and give yourself that nice big squeeze. This time thinking about the distance between the bottom of the thoracic spine and the sacrum. Really trying to maximize that lumbar expansion. And then we will relax our feet. Let our eyes close. Ask yourself if there's anything you could offer that would be advantageous or beneficial prior to Shavasana. If there is, give that to yourself. And if there isn't, finding your way right into a shape where you can appreciate some stillness. And so, seemingly stuck in this impossible spot where anything she does will benefit the people working against her, this young woman has this spark of inspiration. So you're just settling completely into your version of stillness this morning. And so this genius idea that this young woman has is she's going to create this new album, pouring her heart and passion into the music. And she knows, she's confident, she believes that her new music's going to resonate deeply with her fans. And at the same time, she's going to take the step of re-recording her old music, making it hers again, and re-releasing these albums, simultaneously transferring the power that was taken away by the hedge fund and diminishing the value of the asset they had purchased. Let's start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. Up into our wrists and our ankles. To our elbows and our knees. Our shoulders and our hips. Neck and head. Jaw, eyes, reconnecting with that eye musculature, tongue. And then eventually the entirety of our body will move, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in back into a seat. In this seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes closed. And in doing so, this woman becomes maybe the biggest superstar on the planet. With our next inhale, bring our hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that your karma is not a tally of the good and bad deeds and the rewards and the punishments you will get from those? Your karma is the life you create through your direct actions, and see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you have a beautiful day. I bet Annie's going to be watching the Super Bowl. I hope you have fun with that, Annie. Heck yeah. I love the heck out of you guys. I'll be back tomorrow if you want to move, and I'll be back next Sunday to do this again. Wow.